I had a really bad tenancy experience. We were ready to grow our family and we asked our tenants, gave all the right notices, and we said, can you please move out? We're ready to move in. And then they said, no, we're not moving in and we're also not going to pay rent anymore. My name is Weiting Bollu and I am the co-founder CEO at OpenRoom. Wait, this is public information. Why is it not public? We went to CANLI, which is the Canadian Legal Information Institute, and asked them to upload our documents, share it with the world, because this is public information that people should know about. We build software for a living. We got to go do something about this, and that was when OpenRoom started in September 2022.
I want you to look back at when you moved to this country and take me back to that apartment in 210 Oak Street in Toronto, the third floor. How was life then? Walk me through living in that building.
Rewinding back to year 2000 was when my mom and dad had immigrated alongside me. They brought me as a young kid, so I was actually not born in Canada. I was born in China, mainland China, and then we came here in 2000. And at the time, we were actually living in a basement. And then my dad moved us into an apartment. Okay, so that was the 210 Oak Street. And at that time, that building, I didn't really know much. We were in a one-bedroom. Because I was young, I was thinking, oh, well, cockroaches might be where everybody lives. What's wrong with it? Nothing. So then at night, when the cockroaches would come out, I would basically just step all over them or slap them, and they would run all over the floors. Over 56% of all of the applications submitted was for non-payment of rent.
You've been helping, both landlord and tenants. What is the next thing in 2025, half of 2025? Where do you see OpenRoom in the next 2-3 years? If you're a landlord in Ontario, in Canada in general, you know the challenges that people face when they have rental property. The challenges from selecting the right tenant, managing the tenant, or even the worst case scenario, to deal with tenant that is not paying you at all. And we've been seeing this a lot in the country. And thank God we have a platform that is helping investors to be able to avoid these challenges or be able to kind of limit the risk. A platform called OpenRoom. I'm here today with the co-founder, Weiting. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Aziz.
I've been saying I'm going to bring you to the podcast because the thing you created has been like life changer for a lot of people. For my clients, for a lot of other investors in Canada, especially in this province where investors don't even want to invest because our government, the provincial government, they kind of focus a lot on the tenants, leaving out the landlord to figure it out by themselves. You see landlord complaining about tenant owing them years of rent, like 4 years, 3 years. One of my mentors in my investor community, he posted a video about 3-4 weeks ago that he was just able to get out the tenant after 4 years of not paying rent. And you start to imagine like 4 years. That's waste of time, waste of financial resources, and that person needs to pay the mortgage. But you created a platform that has been bringing solution to this for people, bringing transparency for people. And like for me now, if I want to put anyone in my rental property or my client rental property, the first place I go to is OpenRoom. I want to see if their name is there. And first of all, I want you to introduce yourself to my audience for them to know who you are. And then we're going to go into how you actually started this third baby, you call it, for you. That has been an amazing thing for people here in Canada.
Absolutely. And you know what, Kev? When you say 4 years of unpaid rent, yes, we need to come back to that later on because that is an abnormally long time. That should not be the case.
So I think one of the problems he faced was they couldn't get the lady out because she has some kids, and maybe there's a little bit of empathy from the government to the person not to kick them out. And also he said he didn't bring the case to the LTB early, thinking he can solve it, but they just got the person out less than a month ago, and it took 4 years.
Wow. Okay. To play devil's advocate there, I just want to say to your audience that the LTB wait times have started reducing.
Okay.
So it used to take, like, say, over a year for your first hearing. But right now, as of Q1 2025, results came out that it's just under 3 months average for all of the landlord hearings, and then especially for the L1 and 4 non-payment of rent. Okay. So that is really good to hear. It's not good enough, but it's getting better.
Getting better.
Getting better. Yes. Now, in terms of me, my name is Weiting Bollu, and I am the co-founder CEO at OpenRoom. But my journey into OpenRoom was I had a really bad tenancy experience. And the story there is that back in 2021, I wanted to move back into my home because I wanted to grow my family, right? My co-founder and I were, well, co-founder now, but my husband at the time, we were ready to grow our family, and we asked our tenants, gave all the right notices, the N12 to begin with, which is for personal use. And we said, can you please move out? We're ready to move in. And then they said, no, we're not moving in. And we're also not going to pay rent anymore.
Wow.
And
They said this, right?
yes. And at the time I was thinking, is that even a thing? Like, can you just not pay rent? Because that never would have occurred to me as an immigrant in Canada. And I didn't know about the LTB, but lo and behold, we went to the LTB, Landlord and Tenant Board, multiple times because I made mistakes.
That's what I want to ask. Like,
Yeah, made mistakes which were fatal errors, like the dates, the amounts. And then we made multiple errors in, like, say, the N12 versus the N4. Which one do you give? And it was confusing. And then we also waited to go, which then delayed the time frame. And then it was during that backlog, big backlog of COVID moratorium.
okay.
So nothing made it better for my case during that time.
Wow.
And then we came out of the LTB, got these orders, these court orders, tribunal decisions in our hand.
Okay.
So Vishal and I were saying, wait, this is public information. Why is it not public? We went to CanLII, which is the Canadian Legal Information Institute, and asked them to upload our documents, share it with the world, because this is public information that people should know about. We were ignored or told not possible. So then Vishal and I looked at each other and said, we build software for a living, for other companies, software companies in AI, cybersecurity, insurance. We got to go do something about this. And that was when OpenRoom started in September 2022.
Wow. I like when I hear founder bringing their business out because of the problem they face. Because now you think you're not the only person facing that problem.
Yes. And at the time, I felt so sorry for myself because I thought I was the only one. And turns out, after we started sharing our story, that thousands of people wrote in to us and said they were facing the same thing or even worse.
Wow.
When I look at my situation, I was pregnant, wanted to move in. Piece of cake in comparison to some people who have had their families' house burnt down, or they went through miscarriages. Like, those are very, very real situations that have happened with people who have called in to me. And I pick up hundreds of calls every month from landlords, but also renters, because there are good renters that are being taken advantage of by bad landlords.
And that's actually bring us to the next question I want to ask you, because a lot of people see OpenRoom as a safe haven for landlords. How do you help tenants?
On the tenant's side, if you have unpaid rent, right, you go into the system and you end up in OpenRoom if there is a court order. But from a good tenant perspective, you would go into OpenRoom and search for that next landlord that you might have. And do they have bad faith evictions? That's not a good sign. That probably means that they just want to raise rents. Maybe one of the reasons. Or they are in the LTB because their tenants had taken them for maintenance issues. Then that means that they don't take care of maintenance. Like, what's going on? So those are a couple ways that we help tenants or the renter side make more informed decisions before they choose who they want to rent from.
Wow. Because I've always wondered, like, I've used OpenRoom a few times to look for the tenants if their name is there. But I look at them like, this should be useful for the tenants as well. I mean, even though we know it's challenging to get a rental property now, so tenant might not use it effectively as landlord because they're like, I just need a place to live. But landlord, we want to know. And you mentioned something now, which is not even part of what I was thinking I'm going to talk about. Just yesterday, I got a text from one of my clients that mistakenly, because I use the word mistakenly because he didn't really listen to me very well the way I want him to listen, put someone in the property just about 8 days ago. Yeah, 8 days ago. And you get to know yesterday that 80% of the document that they provided are fake. Both the NOA, so they forged the government's document.
Yeah.
They forged the credit score report. And they get to know now that it's fake. Now, I searched their name on OpenRoom for him because that's the only thing I will say. Okay, I have a place I'm going to search. I searched him. They're not owing rent, but they have really bad, like the wife shows 720 on the credit score, but she actually have 429.
Okay.
So he went to a place to find out and see the credit score yesterday, just 8 days. And then he went back to them. They moved in last Saturday and said, hey, guys, the document you give me are fake and I do not want you in my property. The wife said, we are not leaving and you can't kick us out.
It's too late. Once you give over the keys and they've moved in, you have no say afterwards.
So-
Whoever has the key has the power, is the phrase, right?
So now I've told him that he needs to reach out to paralegal. I don't want him to just go to online, just book any form and fill out. Let him start in the proper way. But from my own perspective, I don't think he should keep someone like that in the property. Even though we didn't find their name on OpenRoom, but the record on their credit score shows it was forged. So there's a lot of things included there. I want to go back to your personal story, because when people hear OpenRoom, we're going to have a lot of OpenRoom conversation today. But when they hear OpenRoom, they see the good thing you're doing for us in Canada. But I want to go back to your immigrant story. I want you to look back at when you moved to this country and take me back to that apartment in 210 Oak Street in Toronto, the third floor. How was life then when you moved here in that building? I know one of the email you sent to people in your community, which I'm part of, is you walking past that building and remember everything. You write a lot of things in that email. Walk me through living in that building.
Rewinding back to year 2000 was when my mom and dad had immigrated alongside me. They brought me as a young kid. So I was actually not born in Canada. I was born in China, mainland China. And then we came here in 2000. And at the time, we were actually living in a basement. And then my dad moved us into an apartment. Okay, so that was the 210 Oak Street. And at that time, that building, I didn't really know much. We were in a one-bedroom. Because I was young, I was thinking, oh, well, cockroaches might be where
Part of life.
everybody lives. What's wrong with it? Nothing. So then at night, when the cockroaches would come out, I would basically just step all over them or slap them, and they would run all over the floors. I was not scared of any sort of bugs at that time because I just thought it was very normal, and this is just how it is. There would be pigeons that laid feces on the balcony, and it would be nothing unusual.
And you have
that's
a
just
friend
how
on
it
the
is.
18th floor as well.
Yeah, that friend on the 18th floor had mice in their unit, and you know what? I was lucky because our unit didn't have it. And
Imagine.
yeah, at the time I was thinking, oh, well, we're very lucky. We're extra lucky not to have it. We only have cockroaches, not a big deal. Right? So that was very shocking to me later on. We stayed there for a few years before my dad and my mom ended up buying a house, a little bungalow. And to see how my mom didn't speak a word of English. She still doesn't. Yeah. And so she's been working minimum wage jobs or just staying at home growing me and my sister. So my sister was born here. And then my dad is an electrician. He used to be an automation engineer, but coming to Canada as an immigrant, he couldn't get the certification level that he needed to be. And his English, he felt, wasn't good enough to do more or open up his own business and do that risk taking that now I get to do because he built a life better for me. So with that, when we look at the little bungalow that he and my mom bought, he rented out his basement all the time, Aziz, all the time. And then how I learned about rentals is because he asked me to write a receipt every time the tenant had paid rent. And then to today, earlier you were talking about how investors don't even want to rent or invest anymore. It's true because my dad has been so traumatized by the whole experience that we had gone through that he's just said, I would rather just sit and forego the rental money than go through that stress. I don't need it right now. I'm about to retire. I'm good to go. We think don't do this to me. So from an immigrant who always rented it out to today where he's just like, I don't want to deal with it. That sucks.
It really sucks. And exactly what your dad said, a lot of people, even this same client I told you yesterday was like, Aziz, I'm never going to buy investment property, because we bought this property about a year and a half ago, and he bought the second one, which is an investment property now. Now he's going through that. What do you think? You have a platform now that is doing what I think the government is supposed to be doing for us. But what, from your own perspective, what do you think the government of this country or the Ontario government should have done to protect the landlord more? And I'm not saying they should abandon the tenant. I think it's a good thing that we have to provide housing for everyone in this country. But what can the government do to protect the people that are going through the risk of providing these properties to this group of people?
It's a tough question, Aziz, because as a government, you have to look at all of the millions of residents that you are caring for or that you're responsible for. But when we make broad statements such as the government cares about the landlord more, we do have to be careful about that, because I was looking at some data that was pretty interesting. Everybody thinks that the LTB is all about the tenant side and a bias to the tenant. But when you actually look at some of the data that has been released by the LTB in terms of wait times, for a landlord, earlier we were talking about it being just under 3 months average wait time for that first hearing. When you submit your application, file it online, 3 months. Okay? For a tenant side, it's actually 6 months.
Wow.
Yes, across all of the different types. But we look at the overall number of applications between tenant filed versus landlord filed. Landlord files still has the most, and it's in particular 56% in the Q1 2025 this year. Over 56% of all of the applications submitted was for non-payment of rent. So where can the
66?
No, 56.
56. That's
yes,
huge.
It is 56%. Are for non-payment of rent.
Wow.
Right? So where do I believe that the government can do better in that regard is holding people accountable for their actions, especially when it comes to non-payment of rent. To be going to the LTB, that means that it would have had to been at least 3 months of non-payment of rent at the very least. And then you wait another month for that actual hearing, and then issuance of the order, and then sheriff eviction. That is still at around a 6 to 8 months wait right now.
And there is no way for you to get the money back from there.
Well, there are ways, but it's very difficult when it comes to recovery of money.
Okay.
Very difficult, because it very much depends on the particular debtor, if they care about their credit history, if they have a job, if they have assets. All of that needs to be taken into consideration. So that is why making informed decisions and doing your due diligence at the beginning of a rental agreement is of utmost importance.
I asked that question about, the government, because there is a data, and I think it's something I saw as well from your side as well, that almost $267 million is owed in rent from 2021 to 2025 with the LTB court cases.
Yes.
$279 million unpaid rent.
But you know what? As we sit here today, because we tabulate the data every single day, it's now $303 million that we know of. So there are still
There are still people that have not been able to get their judgment. That they've not said, okay, this person now, because all the one you're talking about now, is it not the one that get the judgment to say, okay?
They got the judgment. Exactly. They got the judgment and they shared it with us, or we obtained it through Freedom of Information requests. That's the only amount that we have. So that means that it's probably billions of dollars that are owed in terms of unpaid rent right now.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for landlord. That's a lot of debt for them. That's a lot of financial stress. And I think what you said about the government should hold them accountable. Is there any organization, any part of the government that, people like you can campaign for on behalf of the people that, hey, this should be the process? Is there anything that you feel like, because you said they should hold them accountable. In what way would you suggest that they could hold, especially people that didn't pay rent?
Well, when we look at the different organizations that are out there, there are ones, for example, FRIPO, which is the Federation of Rental Housing Providers of Ontario, as well as the GTAA, which is the Greater Toronto Apartments Association. There's Hamilton Apartments Association. Like there are organizations out there for the larger landlords or the medium to large. And then there's also organizations such as SOLO, the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario. And these are various lobby groups or associations who might not be lobby groups, but they provide a whole bunch of education and advocacy on behalf of the housing provider community.
Okay.
And these individual companies are going into the government and advocating.
Do you think that advocation or the way they're advocating is effective enough?
I think that there are more effective ones that, like not all of them are made equal. I do believe that some of them are making strides. And even at OpenRoom, we do a lot of advocacy as well. So we would meet with government officials, various ones, and provide what we're seeing in terms of the data that we've got.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're kind of providing them a lot of data that will help them to go ask for those things from the government as well, right?
Yes, we provide it to government directly, or we provide it to these organizations.
Walk me through the process. I want to go back to you deciding to kind of leave your job. Your husband decided to do that. Now you're business owner, you're entrepreneur, and people might, look out there like OpenRoom is doing amazing. I saw you guys have been mentioned in the news recently. You've been mentioned many times, but the recent one. Tell me, what was the difference between when you were working and when you have what are the challenges that you see that, oh my goodness, I didn't know it's going to be like this. I thought I can just have a business. So walk me through the challenges you're facing as a business owner.
Yeah. Recently we were on CTV and CP24 last week, right? And what's funny is that sometimes I'll browse Reddit because the Reddit community is very active when it comes to landlord and tenant issues. And there are certain people who would say, oh, that was a press release. And what's funny there is as we're working, Vishal and I, we happen to see that we're in the news, and we didn't put out anything. We didn't pay for anything. And it was just, wow, we showed up, and that caught us off guard. Why does that happen? It's because the community that we have built believes in what we are doing and what we're building for the future of transparency in the rental ecosystem, that they talk about us all the time. And so you inviting me on here, that's you showing me that the community that we've built works and love what we do, and that you believe in what we believe in, which is fantastic. But behind the scenes, it's never easy because great stuff comes with sacrifices. And at the beginning, this was just supposed to be a side project.
It wasn't supposed to be a business.
Well, we built it during parental leave, right? We had our baby number one, and we were sitting there and thinking, wow, we have so much free time. Just kidding.
Who have free time with kids?
I know, that's what I'm kidding. But we sat there, then over the weekend, Vishal codes. So then he basically put together this one-page website, and it was our orders that were on the website. So we put it on there for people to search by name or by address, and it wasn't supposed to be anything. So that was the beginning. Very, very beginning. And then it really turned out where the community talked about us all the time. Once you hear about OpenRoom, you share it with your friends and then or your colleagues. And then that's where we were looking at the traffic and we were thinking, wow, that's awesome that we have 30,000 people on the website every single month. And then legal teams are calling us to want to work with us because they believe in what we're doing. And the fact that we have public information, which makes it legal in terms of what we're doing. So that's awesome. And that's where we are now in terms of the beauty of the community building with us.
I like that you focus on that community and trying to make impact. That's the most important thing. But I want to ask you, your face is out there everywhere. OpenRoom, you're the face of OpenRoom. When you search OpenRoom, your face come out.
Yes.
You are helping a lot of people, especially landlords. And I think there might be angry tenants or people. Have you gone through any online bullying about what you do from tenants, thinking you put their name? Because now they're not going to say their record is public. You make it even more seen by everyone, right? By letting this person want to rent your property, search their name. Have you ever been kind of challenge or face any online bully or even in person trying to say, why will you do that?
Yes. I mean, rightfully so, because
especially on Reddit.
Yeah, there's people on Reddit, but then there are disputes that come into OpenRoom, and people who send in disputes don't always necessarily know the legalities behind it. So we are a consumer reporting agency, so we must be doing things by the books, or we can't function as a business. So that is regulated under the Ministry of Business and Procurement Services. So you have to be a regulated company. in order to do this.
Wow.
Yes. And so there's the other part of, yes, there's court orders. And certain people are thinking, wow, why is my name on there? That's illegal. But the thing is, these are public documents. That's the other side of how OpenRoom functions is we're not a review site. We don't let you just come in here, you're angry, Aziz, at your wife, right? And then you come in here and then you're like, I don't like it. She's now my tenant. Da, da. No, that's not allowed, okay? Not allowed. It has to be factual and trusted, verified, and public information that we show to the public. Okay.
But still, people, when you said, they attack you, online attack, is there any kind of online bullying from people because of that?
I mean, there are different categories. There would be like, oh, look at her hairline in one of my like viral videos. Okay, so it's like, oh, well, I'm sorry that my hair, I didn't have the greatest genetics. Yeah. And then there's other sides where it's like they would be saying different things about landlords or like that I'm a land leech. But Aziz, I only have one rental property that wasn't even supposed to be a rental. It was supposed to be my primary residence. Right. Vishal had his condo. We each had one. It's our own primary residence before we got married, right? And then it was us living in one first and then wanting to move together to the other one. Now we only have one rental property, but neither was supposed to be one at the beginning. Or it would be, you know what you're doing is illegal. I'm going to have my legal team come issue you a warning, like cease and desist. And we look at every single dispute that comes in. Behind the scenes, whether it's Instagram or email, I answer every single email that comes in. I try my best. If I don't answer, for those who are listening, sometimes I'm like, sometimes people would message like, Weiting, I've been sending you messages. I get nothing back. Yeah, sometimes emails do get buried, but I try to answer every single email that comes in because every dispute has a validity. People want to know what's going on.
Yes.
And that's why we respond. But yes, we do get those.
Wow. And your duty as a company owner is what you're doing to get back to them. You're building a community. You want them to know that you hear them, you listen to them, and this is your own opinion. So let me ask you a question. Someone might be listening to this and they want to buy their first investment property, or they want to rent out their property for the first time. What would you tell me as a new homeowner that wants to rent out? What should I do? Give me the quick guide of how to rent and not make mistakes. At least to limit your mistake.
Yes. You know what? 2 points there. Number one is get educated. Learn about your rights, your responsibilities, but also a tenant's rights and responsibilities. Don't give housing providers a bad name or reputation. There's enough of that already out there, but you need to learn so that you don't make mistakes. And then number two is know what you can and cannot do when it comes to tenant screening. So pull your own credit reports or read through OpenRoom's free resource on 11 pages of tenant screening tips that we've learned from the best of the best in the industry. Wow. Right? These are things that you need to learn about and have tools in your arsenal. You know what? I'll add one more is credit reporting. I think that is very important when it comes to getting advance consent from your renters that they allow you to report into the credit bureau when they pay rent or when they don't pay rent. Okay.
That you need to get approval from them.
Yes, you need to get advance consent. So in a lease, you'll sign the lease and then you'll add an addendum clause afterwards that says, tenant, allow my landlord to report into the credit bureau regarding my rental history. And we have the exact wording on our site that people can get for free. Okay. So add this in there. And then you'll be able to report into credit bureaus such as Equifax. Yes. You want to do that early and get that consent early because if you don't...
If they get in, you might not be able to get that anymore.
That's right, because some people are just thinking, renters might be thinking, I'm status quo, I'm doing well, why do I need to impact my credit history at all? Some people don't see the reason why they want to go and touch the credit history when they're already in the unit. So get in advance. Yes.
I wish my clients listen.
Yes.
I kind of told him almost what it is, but a little bit of emotion is involved whenever people want to rent out sometimes because they think, it's been in the market for a month, I need to start getting money. And when you don't do the due diligence at that point, it's difficult for you to now turn around to want to do the due diligence, right? The good thing is it's just 8 days. So even if it starts now, maybe in 3-4 months, you might be able to kind of get a solution to get them out. You've been doing this, and I'm sure some government entity must be looking at you. Have you been receiving anything from any collaboration from LTB, any housing, department from the government saying they want to kind of collaborate with you to make the whole process better? Or is it just normal companies, individual reaching out to you now?
Right now, it's mainly the companies that are reaching out to us and then us approaching government to provide them with some of the data that we see. It's like show them what we have so that we can keep advocating for different policies that they are potentially working on or different organizations are working on. But one of the departments that we are working with is the Ministry of the Business and Procurement Services that looks after the Consumer Reporting Act.
Okay.
Because what we're doing is reporting on people's consumer data. So we have personal data in relation to name, address, and your financial history, basically, right? Because we report into the credit bureau, especially when you don't have or didn't pay rent, then it comes out with a court order. We can then hit your collections line item. And in order to do that, we have to be regulated a consumer reporting agency. So they know about us.
I want to ask you another thing now.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, I want to be a partner. No, let me form this question a different way. There are other organizations as well that are doing things to help tenant and landlord. Is there any synergy, any connection, any collaboration between you guys? I'm talking about other platforms that are doing things to help. Where did you come into their platform, or where did they come into yours that can make the work together?
Yes, one of the ones that I love talking about is Single Key.
Okay,
Single Key helps with...
what's different from what you do to Single Key?
Oh, Single Key does a whole bunch of things that we don't do.
Okay.
Actually, all of the things that we don't do. So, for example, what they do, primarily is rent a landlord guarantee on your rent. So they'll guarantee your rent if your tenant doesn't pay, for example. That's like partly insurance related, okay? And then the other side is they pull tenant screening reports from Equifax as a whole. So if you are a new landlord, you don't want to just take what the applicant gives you, like tenant gives you as their credit history. You want to go and pull your own, and you can do that through a platform like Single Key. And so where OpenRoom plays in there is that OpenRoom is a data point inside that full report.
Okay.
So yes, Single Key's team, they integrate into OpenRoom. They have a data point. They'll check the name, check the address, and we do combinations of aliases, names, birth dates on people, and then return something back to that report.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are focused getting data, especially with LTB cases, for Single Key. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yes, we operate across Canada, but because we're in Ontario, I'm sharing more of the Ontario stats and processes.
So do you see more? Which province do you see more landlord? I mean, I would believe it's Ontario.
Well,
you
what's
see
the question?
more.
Is that a leading question?
That's which province do you see more issues with landlord and tenant the most?
Yeah, I would say Ontario is one of the top ones. I think it's not that unobvious that it is Ontario, and then probably next in line would be British Columbia, even though they have some laws that are in place. One of which, going back to that question in relation to the government, right? The British Columbia government actually has something where if there is a situation where the tenant doesn't pay rent, there can be an expedited order or ex parte order is what it's called. Ex partes mean that you don't need to go in and wait for a hearing in order to get an order.
Okay.
So it can go directly in a written, like an adjudicator will still look at it and then they'll issue an order, but you don't have to wait that 3 months to go into that hearing.
The 3 months here is scary.
Well, it's 3 months just to
get
a hearing date. That's not exactly like to your first hearing, right? So that's tough. And that is something that another province has that we don't have, that maybe potentially could come into play in the future.
And I think if we have that in Ontario, it's going to be really helpful. It's not because people think the landlord just want to kick them out. If there's evidence that this person is not paying rent and is a lot of money, there should be something faster to get them out of the property so that the owner don't go into any financial problem as well. Let me give you probably going to be the last question before we round this episode up. I appreciate you being here, by the way. What's next for OpenRoom? You've been doing this. You've been helping both landlord and tenants. What is the next thing in 2025? half of 2025. Where do you see OpenRoom in the next 2-3 years?
It would be a beautiful world if we can get access to all of the court orders directly from the different courts. That would be beautiful to provide that full transparency to everybody that deserves it.
Do you think that will happen?
Well, as an entrepreneur, you have to be optimistic. You can't just if you're an entrepreneur and you're on the pessimistic side, then you're not fit to be an entrepreneur, right? So from our perspective, yes, we have to be smart. We have to be hardworking. We have to keep working at it until we get the official no. But even if it's a no, maybe it's a no now, doesn't mean it's a no forever.
What do you think could be like? So that's what you believe you would like to have on OpenRoom.
Yes.
Right? But what do you think how would that help the most? Because you have public data already that is really helping anyways. Is there anything that you think OpenRoom will want to do next to say, okay, to make this platform better, this is what we need to do? Maybe we need to connect this platform to something when you're even doing this. I mean, Single Key is doing something similar, but is there any other thing that would be like OpenRoom could also help on that, knowing that this data is available and we have access to that data, that you think maybe in 2-3 years, you and your co-founder or your team will want to get into as well, to move into?
Our fundamental basis is people need to be held accountable for their actions.
That's true.
So all of the things that we build are around that premise. So when we look at court orders, that's one element, and getting all of it would make it a more complete story. Yes. So even if someone shared an order with us, that's only one order, but maybe there are actually subsequent stays, reviews, a refiling of something else, another order that comes out. We want to be able to piece that story together so then you can actually, as a searcher inside OpenRoom, have that full, complete story to make more informed decisions. Right now, you get a piece of it, but that's not the whole story. And certain people might feel that's biased against them. So that's what would be very helpful. And then the other side that we do is that when you have unpaid rent in a court order, we then send it into Equifax to hit your credit history negatively. So that's the other element that we want to be able to do en masse.
That is what I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think when people hear that something is going to affect their credit score, at least there's a certain number of them that will be like, I don't want to do this. Now, when people hear about you're going to go search their name on OpenRoom, it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Because they know they have something there.
Yes.
So right now you have the access to do that to Equifax, or that's where you think you also want to get to give the report to Equifax?
We already are doing it, but we want to do it at a more intensive level where every housing provider out there should know that if you have a court order, come to OpenRoom afterwards and let us help you hit the credit history in that collections line item so that we make it a good practice, right? It should be automatic. In the future, maybe what would be awesome in an ideal world is you don't even need to do it on your own, that the government will allow us to do it direct into Equifax. That would be a beautiful, beautiful world.
I would like that.
Yes.
I would like that.
Then everybody gets hit if you have bad actions.
Yes, both landlord and tenant.
Yes, and that's the other part is right now we only talked about the landlord being owed debt, but we also know that tenants get owed debt by the landlord as well. And that is coming out very soon where the tenant will be able to go after the landlord. On their credit history.
Good. And so now the two parties know that they have solution for both of them.
Yes.
Weiting, I really appreciate our conversation today. Is there anything else that you think we didn't talk about that you think would be beneficial to Canadians, landlords, my listener, the audience listening to us today, that you think Aziz I didn't ask you that you would like to talk about?
The one last piece that I would like to talk to your audience about is the fact that we have education in our ecosystem, whether it be our newsletter, our webinars, our OpenRoom University. There's so much good free content, high quality content that we put out there to educate the community because education is so key that we were talking about. Exactly. So use those resources, free templates. We give out a lot of stuff for free because when we look at the whole ecosystem, if people can get more educated, make more informed decisions, we'll eventually see reduced backlogs at these tribunals. We will see less sensational topics in the media about unpaid rent, about deadbeat tenants, about slumlords. Like I see a world where the tenants and the landlords, the responsible ones, can thrive together. That's what we want to be building.
And I think with what you're building in OpenRoom and all other platforms as well, especially you, because you're the first goal for me whenever I have a tenant, I want to rent my client property, or even I want to help them to rent property. The first thing that I think of is OpenRoom. And for you to build something that everyone wants to go there to get that source of data, information, to know how to make that decision, I genuinely think the whole investor community, landlord, even tenant, should continue to thank you guys for what you've built there, for bringing that awareness to people to say, hey, if you do something wrong, there's consequences. And I appreciate that. We've been having conversation for close to 35 or 40 minutes, and you've shared a lot of information that I think people listening to this will be able to use to make a better decision. And a lot of people now, you hear that there's a lot of free education in our website. I'm one of the members that you send a newsletter to every month, and I look forward to newsletter all the time. Even before coming to the podcast today, I still go through them again. I still read them because I know you share a lot of insightful information there. Thank you so much. I know your co-founder, your husband, is not here, but when you get home, tell him I say thank you for both of you working together to build this amazing platform. And I hope we're going to be able to work more on things together to help both landlord and tenant and everyone. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much. I'll make sure to give him a hug from you.
Thank you.